Hi y'all, this episode I'm so excited to bring forth to you. This is a conversation I really just pressed record when Susie and I were together sitting in the Tiger Temple in Guatemala at this incredible retreat center where, so much transformation always happens every time we go, and just sitting in that space, being with her, I don't know, just felt really good. So this is our conversation. We're talking about all sorts of things, and Susie is just somebody who, the moment Lindsay introduced me to her, I just knew this is someone who has done the work and has shown up for her own journey and healing in a way that is very embodied, very grounded, very sweet, very ethereal. I mean, she got some codes, y'all. And she's, in a chapter of her life, she's a grandmother. So kind of like elder vibes for us. And, I was definitely seeking that. So Susie's it. She's the real deal. I hope you receive something from this conversation, and there is a way to work with Susie coming up through a course that I'm putting together for her. I just want to get you all access to her, so I'm putting together an up-level course that will be starting at the end of July. And then she has some really incredible grid work trainings that she offers. And, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to get some codes that are going to maybe shake some shit up in your world, but also clear a way for you to know more of how this is all set up and how it works and how you are ready player one in your experience. I love you all. Enjoy the episode. Here we go.
Many of us have done a lot of the shadow work to clear the trauma and to clear all the blockages to allow these new beings, higher souls, to be able to come in without having the karmic load of the ancestral kind of stuff,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've done a lot of the background work so they can come into a little bit more of a pure environment and body, and because we were all being fed, stuff from boxes, and we were talking about pixie sticks, eating sugar out of straws, it all contributes to how we're experiencing it here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And, I think, because when you become aware and then you kind of go into that, okay, I've got to really cleanse my body because my body is my vehicle to access higher intelligence, higher consciousness.
Yeah. It's all one.
Yeah.
That's been, and man, we'll probably do part 2 podcast on how do we experience it out of here, because I was always under the impression we have to leave this body behind, and so the body doesn't really matter, but now I'm okay, no, it feels like the body's pretty important.
I see the body as it's basically our temple, right? Whatever we put into it on physical level, emotional level, energetic level, spiritual level, it has an effect. And what has happened throughout our ancestral bloodline.
That blew my mind when I was re-listening to the course when you mentioned the Templar, right, the temple and the pillar, because that's always been such a strong visual for me in this remembrance. And even at the retreat this week was so many women when they're brand new, and that's why I love sitting with women who are brand new to any inward turning, because maybe never been given permission to see themselves at their core as pure and like solid and sovereign, because they oftentimes unconsciously are just carrying that belief of like, oh, I'm damaged, I'm broken, I'm a sinner, I'm all these things. But when you said Templar, it's like, oh
yeah,
this temple that we take care of, we honor it, we give it reverence, we respect it, and that central pillar of light that we are, like, it was so cool to hear. I was like, I needed that.
It's such a potent thing when you come to that realization. I mean, I had, like you, when I kind of started to, you know, like hear that and, you know, like put it together, and, you know, we are. Are you recording that?
Yeah, I am. I'm already going. Just like, and that's working, so we'll just keep going.
Yeah, because, you know, when you strengthen that pillar of light and you realize that our body is that temple, it's like, it's almost like, you know, any outside forces just find it really hard to infiltrate in.
Yes.
It becomes a powerful protection.
I really wanted to talk to you about that too. So we may just go off wherever we're going to go, and I have my questions, but like, I was thinking about this, how like, we can only speak from our own experience, but I was like, okay, I'm worrying so much less in my life. I'm so much less stressed. I'm so much less, I may experience anger, but it's not from like a place of my pain and my trauma anymore, because I feel like I've cleared so much of that out. So does that mean that I'm feeding the infiltration less when I am more like just solid in my field? Like, am I, is that like, it feels like a little tunnel up to be able to experience more of this realm, because I'm not, does that make sense? I feel like absolutely. I'm not like fueling something.
Because I think when we do a lot of the inner work and, you know, go back into all of the traumas and clear it all and really trace back where, you know, like a lot of those traumas stem from, like the root causes, then the triggers that would probably normally have like set us off into, you know, going, you know, into like anger or fear or sadness or whatever it is, just they don't have the they just don't have the energetic frequency anymore. Like they lose their frequency, if that makes sense. And because we have worked on clearing that, and we're strengthening, like we said, the pillar and the temple of our own, you know, spiritual house, which is the body. That
makes sense.
To be able to go into like reach higher states of consciousness, to commune with, you know, divine intelligence, God, source creator, you know, and, you know, the benevolent beings that are here to guide us, essentially, you know, in, you know, unseen ways, you know, like, go this way, no, don't go that way, go this way.
So I mean, I feel like maybe you have shared this before, but I would love to hear and like share it in the podcast. Like, when did this start for you? The moment is like, oh, there's more to being here. There's more than told. Like, when did your like more moments start in your life?
I've had a couple, actually. I think my first more moment was in my early teenage years, where I would call it a dark night of the soul. Like, you know, like going through that period of like, wow, a lot of things happened to me, you know, and I kind of questioned, what am I doing here? Like, what is this life? And at that, there was points where I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I've had a couple of those through my life, but they're kind of the defining moments where you know, I was guided to a teacher that became my teacher for 10 years. And she guided me through, that was sort of my first initiation. And at that point, I think I was like 16 or 17. And she opened my mind to the spiritual realm. I had already, you know, gone through a period of religious kind of, not sort of indoctrination, but I'd definitely been to church, and I read the Bible and, you know, like all of that kind of stuff. But she sort of opened my mind to this other world out there, and I was so ready to, you know, hear it. And I wanted to dive in like hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Tell me everything. I want to know everything. And I think that was a really defining moment, because it made me realize that there's something more outside myself, and I can be of service to other people.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, you know, I kind of had that, you know, beautiful realization that it's not just about me. And yeah, I can, through that spiritual, it was like a circle that we met like twice a week, and there was one meeting that was just purely meditation. And there was another meeting that I wasn't allowed into for like a whole year, which was so frustrating, because all I wanted to do was like know all about what's going on in there, because they would clear entities and they'd go to houses and they'd clear energy from houses. And, you know, I just wanted to know everything. But it was like a spiritual kind of, initiation to wait and just meditate and be with that and develop my spiritual maturity in a way as much as you can when you're like 17.
Totally.
I think at about 18, like a whole year of like just showing up every week. And I was fasting one day a week on that meditation day. And I think I was meditating like at least once a day. You know, like meditation was the thing that really opened, you know, me up in a spiritual way as well, to go inwards. And because going inwards, we sort of start to experience the other realms, as you know. And so, getting back to that, it was like, so a whole year I waited, I showed up, and I really felt like I was putting my time in as like an apprentice kind of thing, you know. And I was still like, if you want to call it that, apprentice, when I started into these other circles, because I was still learning, you know, and I was learning, okay, you know, like discernment of the energies. Yes. Like that is such a big thing, you know, like I guess the couple of things that really stick in my mind about some of the qualities that we had to really embody was love, obviously, compassion, understanding, discernment, and humility. Yeah. And so those, I think there were like just 4 or 5, those core kind of pillars that were really helpful in, you know, being able to expand into, okay, I can sort of sense what's going on, but also thankfully I had, you know, other people that were way more experienced at dealing with the kinds of energies. So that was one sort of period of my life that was kind of an opening into, okay, definitely a foundational part of my spiritual understanding. And really, you know, feeling, what does it feel like in my body when I feel love? You know, like that pure love that you know, like you have love for your family and your children and your friends, but there's another kind of divine love that it's the same, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe.
It's like visceral, like it's like, it's like a parallel, visceral, real, tangible thing that gets experienced.
For me, it's like so emotional. Like it's almost like tears of joy, happiness, love, bliss. You know,
Lindsay's really good at tapping into that. You'll just look over and she'll just be crying at a picture of my son. It's like, I just love you. Like, but it's not, and it's him that she's crying, but it's like, it's the love that that's moving her. I love that.
So I guess we sort of met for 10 years, like constantly, twice a week. for 10 years.
Wow.
And that was pretty solid time. Then I had my son.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, you know what, I feel like I need to pull my energy back a little bit from this kind of like energy of going in, clearing entities and things like that, because it didn't feel good anymore in my body. So I had to really honor that. And I think, you know, the circle after that period may have disbanded for a while. I think we all sort of went and did, you know, our individual things. And then I went through another period of, like, that was always the foundation. Like, I never kind of lost sight of that. Not feel the thing. You can't not remember how the feeling was. And so that was always, such a beautiful remembrance of, connecting into spirit and God and Christ. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. And and then, you know, life went on. And then I think I definitely went through another dark night of the soul, which kind of initiated a whole other awakening, probably more into, you know, what the kinds of things that I'm doing now. Yeah.
You think motherhood really catalyzed a lot of that for you, or did it catalyze another part of your journey, like caring for someone else? I really felt like when I became a mom, all the stuff that I thought I had looked at internally was then being mirrored back to make sure it was either cleared or in a healthy place. Like, did you feel like you had any transformation happen inside of motherhood?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I also kind of went through a period of, because I was a single mom for pretty much the whole time, except for a couple of years. I felt like I had to step into that provider role, so which I had to. So a lot of my kind of foundational practice of meditation and things kind of went out the window a little bit. So I felt a little disconnect. Yeah. And then I had to have this serious reawakening of, okay, like, where are you going with your life? Yeah. And question it. Yeah. And but yes,
so helpful for people to hear, though. I think there's some women here that would like love to hear that exact thing, that like sometimes it's like a temporary reality for you, if that's, and you can come back. Like, it may be uncomfortable when you come back to like your awakening and your spiritual journey, but yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, well, you know, like through those really dark times, you kind of like, it's like, man, what the heck is going on in this world? You know, like I felt attacked on all levels. And but when I can look back and see the journey and see the ups and downs and the, you know, all the ways that, you know, like the path is opened into amazing things, I see it as, you know, a beautiful experience, even though there were moments, like I probably had, both those dark nights of the soul were periods where I could have easily done something pretty crazy, which, you know, I didn't. And I can look back and see that, you know, everything that I've been through has actually led me to this moment right here to experience all the amazing things, even though in that moment you feel that it's never ending and it's like you're in the darkest hole of hell, because it kind of is that. And you have to drag yourself out, and you do. Yeah. You know, like you do, because we have, I mean, we were all like divinely guided, you know, by, you know, God, Christ, our teams of, you know, angelic beings or guides or, you know, higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, when we're in that state, it's sometimes harder for them to connect, because we're so like in the trauma or in the anxiety or the pain of it all. but there is definitely light at the end of it all, and it doesn't last.
Yeah. So when you stepped into that provider role, when you were, in motherhood, going through that, you went like full, like we would say like full into the 3D, like career, like providing money. So I don't know this part about you. So like, what did you do for like career?
I was a fashion designer.
Cool.
Yeah. I still love clothes.
Yeah.
But, I'm not like obsessed, but
yeah.
I used to love designing, and I used to had my own label. I had 2 stores in Sydney, and I wholesaled around Australia and a little bit in the US, not much. And then I think it was around, so like that was a lot. And so I kind of missed out a lot on, my kids' years a little bit, because which is kind of sad, but I do have beautiful memories of us all together doing all, the family things and what have you, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
And so I had a shop. Literally in the 3D world.
Yeah, but you were still doing something creative, which I love, because creativity and keeping that intact, like we were speaking to that yesterday in the fire ceremony with the shaman, with Tomas.
Beautiful.
And he just kept pointing back to, like, we are in extreme changing times with the way technology is advancing, and to hold our creativity intact is like what can help us maintain our humanity. And even in those times where maybe you felt and you were disconnected from your spiritual journey, like still you were being creative in many ways, which is like so spiritual, like such a spiritual thing.
And when I think back on what was the key motivation in that journey in my fashion experience, and because I got to a point where I just don't like doing this anymore. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And what part of that gave me the deepest satisfaction, when I was, like being creative. And so what I suddenly came to the realization of was because I used to do made to measure for, ladies that were going to, events and, formal kind of black tie events. And, not every lady has the perfect figure, right? Like you see, like whatever it is. And so the thing that was so amazing was I would create these beautiful dresses on these ladies, and just to see them look at themselves in the mirror and then just get this feeling of, oh my gosh, I look beautiful. I feel beautiful. And so, that was like that's kind of one of the things in that 3D world where I was able to still be in that service role in some way. Of making someone feel good, about themselves.
I love that.
So,
okay, life continues, you continue, you're getting more tools for your toolbox. Like a lot of my friends that are going to listen to this, and anybody that's going to listen to this, like may be a little new to grid work and like are very curious. And anytime I get a chance to talk about it, I'm like, if you're on a spiritual path and you're, growing and evolving, like understanding grid work and the role you can play in what this is just a really cool thing right now. So I would love in your words, like just tell us, what is grid work? How does it work? And like, how do we play a role in grid work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so grid work. Well, first of all, I guess there's a few different ways that we can do it. Grid work. We can, like we were talking about earlier, be that Templar pillar of an acupuncture point in any part of the earth that we're at, to bring in this basically ascending energy into the land or into your home or wherever you are. That's one aspect of grid work that's a really simple aspect. But basically we're working with the energies of the land, the energies, that are all around us, because we understand that there are certain ley lines and grid lines and power lines and energy lines that crisscross all across the planet. And it's like this net. And some of those lines are quite powerful. And when they cross over at certain intersections, create like powerful, potent, ascending hubs of energy. That is the intention. And that's why we see a lot of sacred sites and cathedrals, churches and temple spaces placed upon these specific places in the grid that, you know, this is really ancient teachings from the Essene Templars, the Christos Templars, that held this ancient builder knowledge of, you know, how these energy lines run in connection to the like the star systems and the galactic systems, and where on the earth these high ascending energies will be. And so they would build these structures that are basically harmonizing buildings of, when you sense into their kind of like a frequency of light and sound within these structures, for the purpose of connecting to higher consciousness. And to have that communion with God, or, you know, higher intelligence, unity consciousness. And so, yeah, we find like the pyramids. And it's so interesting, I don't know if you saw recently, they discovered underneath the pyramids these structures that are for, I believe, you know, connecting into the higher realms. And
so
I know,
amazing.
Right? Yeah. So these, you know, like in these locations, you know, they found these certain portal vortexes of energy that would enable us as humans to be able to connect into our higher selves or the higher consciousness. And so when we do grid work, we also understand that sometimes when there is ascending hubs of energy, there can be negative energy that comes in to create like
it's like compromises it.
Yeah, it compromises it wants to siphon the energy basically. And a lot of the time in the grids you can find blockages, and so sometimes it's, you know, part of grid working is going into those different areas and clearing out that blockage. And
that someone may have put there to stop the ascension energy from being accessed to people. Because they would want to cause harm. So what kind of effect does that have on, like, say, a group of people that's living around that area if there's a blockage there? Or even, because could it be a blockage and also a harmful causing? Like, could they reverse the energy so it's more like chaos being created? Does that happen?
So you sometimes find in those particular areas there's going to be a lot of crime. There's going to be a lot of drug taking, or like addictions and things like that, whatever the addiction is going to be. But there's going to be a lot of that in the people. And that is because those forces or energies want to use that and harvest that energy, and that's how they do it. And a lot of it is also artificial structures that are, you know, metallic, placed in there by these, you know, other beings or entities that do not want the ascension to take place.
But there isn't the ability in some of these places, or all of these places, for us to contribute to the energy flowing. Again, I think of it like Reiki. Like with Reiki, you're not using your energy. You're just like a antenna for the energy to come through, so the person who also has the energy running through them. It's kind of like the land. The energy's already there.
Yeah.
You can put all the hexes or whatever, all the structures over it, but you can't fully take it away. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, from my understanding, there's a lot of that sort of lower energy that is, losing its grip basically at the moment, because a lot of people are waking up to what is going on and consciously bringing that energy in, you know, like their own higher frequency vibration through just being in integrity. Can do it. And, you know, people just might get called to certain places in the grids or certain countries where they don't know why, but, you know, maybe they're just, you know, there to be this anchor point for this light energy and frequency to go into the land. And also sometimes when there's been trauma on land, so for instance wars, where there's been like bloodshed, you know, there can be energies that are organically trapped in between dimensions. And so that is also another aspect of, you know, clearing the grids, because a lot of the time, you know, if there's been when people have died in traumatic experiences, their energy can be stuck in that place, and that can cause, you know, sometimes on land you can sense something's happened, you know, on this land, you know, what's going on, you know, like, and you just feel into the land, you know, and you really ask the land, and the land has consciousness, you know, how you can best help the land, how can you serve the land, you know, what has happened here, and then through experience you understand how to shift those energies out into, you know, higher dimensional frequencies for their own spiritual evolution, because, you know, every soul is on a path, and whether they do get stuck because of traumatic experiences, they, you know, they need to be able to ascend and out and go to whatever place in the I guess the multidimensional universe that we live in for healing certain levels of their soul consciousness.
So amazing.
I mean, and so these are all the different ways you can do grid work, right? I mean, that is another way, you know, when there's been, you know, things that have happened on the land, or you know, things that have happened like that can also create openings into the different dimensions, and not necessarily good openings, you know, like a dark portal situation. So part of grid work is sometimes to be able to understand how to close that safely.
Your course really helped me with that, because I feel like we get what we need when we need it, if we're continually growing and seeking. Like, I knew breath work was so powerful. I knew things were happening. I knew people were releasing their own stuff. I knew they were probably bringing stuff through that they had been carrying from their family line. But I didn't know fully. I had like glimpses of how you also have to just be so careful with what you're holding the space for. The course really helped me just see, like, it's just another level of just responsibility, energetic responsibility. Like, we're doing these powerful things and these releases, but where's all that energy going?
Exactly.
Where's all that pain and that anger towards your dad or towards whatever? Like, are we just letting it hang out in the room that we've just been in? Like, and I think for a while I was doing that.
Sorry. It makes me laugh. Sorry.
Because it's true. And like, when I would have, and there were some people who were also on, you know, energetic spiritual journeys, like sharing, like, hey, there may be an up level for you to like learn what to do with that once it's out. Because I got really good at having these big, emotional releases. And I don't want to say, like, I feel like my intentions were always good, but I just didn't know.
Yeah.
So once I knew how to do better, I started doing better. And now it feels like I take less on, like I leave breathwork journeys like less like tired and afraid, and it feels like just a more responsible evolution of the work.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, because it is really important, when we're holding space, that we set the space, and we create that, protection around the space. And as you know, through the course that we did, the grid work course, we would always set a space for any energy to be able to transit. And I work with what is termed the Holy Mother Arc Portal. So this is a beautiful energy that of the Holy Mother that can transit souls or any energy to like go to where it's meant to go to.
Yeah.
So it's really important. And then once you have set the space and you've had your session or the breath work or whatever it is that you're doing, and it's important to close it down. As well.
Yeah. That's all just such important tools. And I think so many like women in this community and women that we're walking with are ready to advance and evolve. And that's kind of like my next question is like, I would just love to hear what you are sensing. Like I could give my language on what I'm sensing, and I see it a lot in women because I work mostly with women, and I see it in my partner too. He is extremely advanced. He's opening his heart. All of these things are happening, but I would just love to hear like, what are you sensing is happening now on the planet when it comes to those of us who are wanting to be of service, wanting to learn, wanting to expand, knowing that there's more. Is there anything you're like feeling lately is happening or is coming or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Where to start with that? I think it's amazing that everyone, like most people that I am speaking with, are also like you, and the people that are going through this like questioning, awakening, and how can I be of service? But then there is also, people that don't want to stay, that have no intention.
Yeah.
It's more service to self.
Yeah.
So everyone has free will, right? Like God has given us free will to do whatever we choose here. And not everyone is going to choose that higher path of evolution, spiritual evolution. And some will stay in that realm that is, I see, well, it's kind of like a bifurcation where there's an upper leveling of a certain part of humanity that is going to go into experience, greater levels of bliss and harmony and whatever new earth kind of frequency is. And there's those that still want to choose to stay in the lower frequency, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because everyone does have the choice, but then we also understand that we can have compassion for those that are sort of trapped in a way in that cycle.
And not take it personally either if they're close to us, people close to us.
Yeah.
Which is big work.
Yeah, I think also, when we sort of go on this, self-expanding spiritual evolutionary journey, some people are not going to come with us.
Yeah.
We can still love them and they can still be part of our life. But there's, they're kind of not coming along the whole journey, yet.
Right. Yeah. I've been thinking of it, and I think Tomas said it yesterday too. Like there's just so many nuggets. There's one last nugget I'm going to tell you and see what you think about this. But he spoke to like, you go from the me. So you go from like unaware of that any of this is happening to like, holy shit, something's happening. So you go to me, like, who am I? Like who what is this body? What is my astrology chart? That's what I love about this retreat, because these women are like getting their first astrology reading, their first Reiki sessions, their first sweat lodge, like all these first.
Yeah.
And it's such a me focused week, but the intention is always the evolution into the we, you know, the me into the we, like, okay, yes, empower, like plug yourself into the light socket that is you, like it is literally you, and then you don't have to keep looking outside of yourself anymore for your answers or your love or anything. It's like this well that you're in, and you can see them literally like from the week, like change. Their skin tone change and all these things change. And like, but I love now that because of where Lindsay and I are, you know, we're holding this space and we're creating these things, and we're still very much on our journey, but we've infused into the intention of the experience so deeply the we. Like, this is ultimately about all of us who are going to go or meant to go or going to be walking with us, like all of us plugging in together. So we've learned how to plug in ourselves. That responsibility is there, that sovereignty. And now what happens when we sit together, we breathe together, we dance together, we play together? Like, that's it. Like, that's where, like, this realm does feel like heaven.
Yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And what an amazing kind of growth experience, transformation that your ladies are having.
Whew. Yeah, it never stops. And she, if she was here right now, she would tell you, like, you know, she's been purging the last 24 hours. But
I'm so sorry for her.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This is about, they're about to ring the lunch bell, and I know there's so much more conversation we can have, but I feel like this was a great start.
Thank you too. I'm really grateful for that.
It's
so lovely chatting.
Everybody listening, I'm going to drop all of Susie's links. She just said she's going to start another grid work course soon. So keep an eye out for that. I'll make sure you have information. It's just, thank you for your commitment to your own path and to all of us. And it was a big gift meeting you last year. So thank you.
Thank you too. I'm really grateful for meeting you guys. Wow.
Yeah. All right, my loves. Thank you. We'll see you again.